Welcome everyone to this week's community call. We hold these calls every other Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. UTC. Today on the call, we have a lot of things to celebrate. I'll go over some of the agenda items for today. The first is I'll be talking about Nexus Mutual V2 and the first stage that was completed. I'll go through a timeline for the remaining stages as well. I'll talk a bit about FTX International claims and provide an overview, talk about some of the resources we have. I'll go through some of the upcoming claims for FTX US, BlockFi, and Gemini Earn. I'll go through some of the process and the dates for those. And on our general update side, we'll hear from Hugh, and he'll give us the weekly update from the foundation. I'll go over the weekend review of cover sales, the active coverage by cover type, and then I'll share some updates from the community. Some things on the forum, and then I'll present an open forum for anybody who wants to cover anything or bring anything up or ask any questions if there was something that we didn't cover during the call. So I will jump right into it, and we can get started talking about the first stage of Nexus Mutual V2. So we announced on Monday that the first stage was completed, so that upgrade was made, and there were 4 contracts that were upgraded to enable partial claims. The token controller, claims reward, and quotation contracts were all updated to allow for partial claims functionality. And so far with the FTX International claims filing, we've already seen our first partial claim, which is claim 159. You'll see on the screen when you're looking in a claims UI, if you're looking at an individual claim, you'll see the cover amount and then the requested amount. When somebody's filing a claim, they'll be able to just enter in the amount for their actual loss, and then claims assessors can verify that when they're going through the claims process. This is a big improvement. This is something that members have been asking for and the engineers have been working on for quite some time. Now that this functionality is available, we've seen 3 partial claims to date, and so far the covered amount, the difference between the covered amount and the requested amount for those 3 claims in total is a little over $863,000. Really important stage, really important upgrade, especially for the upcoming claims that are happening and the FTX International claims that are happening now. And we'll have a couple of the other stages completed here after claims filing is complete. So stage 2 is the remaining smart contract upgrades. This will make changes to the cover module and some of the cover features, pricing and capacity for the protocol, staking and staking pools, so an upgrade from the risk assessment module, and then some changes to claims assessment as well. For stage 2, this next upgrade can occur after claims filing for FTX US, BlockFi, and Gemini Earn. Before we can upgrade any more contracts, we just want to give people some time to file claims, have those claims reviewed, and have those claims resolved. So once claims filing is complete for those, stage 2 will be completed. After stage 2 is completed, then the updated UI in stage 3 can be implemented. There'll be changes in the UI to the home screen, very minimal changes, the buy and cover UI, the staking to have an interface for staking pools and staking and delegation, and the interface for claims assessment. Of course, this will occur after stage 2 is completed, but both of these stages will happen very closely together after claims filing occurs. One thing that I want to note is that the engineers have been working very hard on the upgrades for Nexus Mutual V2. A lot of their time and effort has gone into getting partial claims up, working on these remaining upgrades, which will be coming soon. And Nexus Mutual V2 is a pretty radical shift from V1. It's taken a lot of the lessons that we've learned in the last several years, and it's built on the foundation that we already have, and is just expanding the reach and the ability of the protocol and allowing other people to build on top of it. So we have a more composable protocol with better risk controls that can be more reactive when the market changes. So I'm looking forward to sharing more updates about the next 2 stages after claims filing is complete. Stay tuned for updates that I'll share across our socials, on our blog, and in Discord and on community calls as well. I'm going to move on to a review of some of the FTX International claims that have been filed so far. If you look in the Nexus Mutual UI, you can see some of the claims in the claims tab. I will include some of the other claims in Discord. I've been putting those in the forums channel an individual discussion. So if anybody has anything that they want to discuss about these claims, they can. But the first two claims that were filed last night. So claim 156 and 157. Both of these claims are for the full amount. Both of these have verified accounts and have provided proof of loss. The quorum has been reached for claim 156. And for claim 157, we still need more claims assessors to review and vote on that claim. The required quorum is 127,783.25 NXM. And so far in voting weight, there is 50,000 NXM that has voted. So if anybody would like to act as a claims assessor and stake their NXM and vote on this claim or other claims, you can review those and vote in the claims UI. If you have any questions, feel free to tag me in Discord, or you can look through the claims filing guide, which has a review of the process, or you can look directly in the docs at some of the claims filing information there as well. Claims 158 and 159 were both filed, I think, earlier this morning, at least my time, but within the last 9 or 10 hours. These are both have verified accounts and both have provided proof of loss. Claim 158 is for the full cover amount of 20 ETH, but claim 159, again, is that first partial claim for 69,334 DAI. Quorum required for 158 has been reached, so needed a little over 3,600 NXM, and the voting weight currently is 4,524 NXM. On claim 159, however, we do need more claims assessors to review and vote. The quorum required is a little over 11,000 NXM. Again, if you're interested in participating in claims assessment, you can review and vote on claim 159 and claim 157. Claims 160 and 161, both filed earlier this morning. 160 is a partial claim for 240,003 DAI. Both of these have verified accounts and have provided proof of loss. Quorum required for both is on the higher side. 160 requires 111,115 NXM. No one's voted on either of these yet, so if you're looking to vote, these are both open for review. Quorum required for 161 is 36,448.86 NXM. And claim 162 is another partial claim. The covered amount is 75,000 DAI, and the claimed amount is 63,095 DAI. It's a verified account. They provided proof of loss, and the quorum required here is 8,333.69 NXM. This one is open for review as well. You can also find a breakdown in the FTX halted withdrawals spreadsheet. I'll be tracking the progress of each claim there, providing some hyperlinks to the actual claims assessment UI, and including a high-level detail. So anybody who has filed a claim and wants a high-level review without going to the UI can look there. Anybody who's looking at the progress of claims assessment on a whole or the FTX International claims can look there as well. So seeing a steady flow of FTX International claims come in, I think there are still more due to come in. I believe there's more verified accounts that haven't yet filed a claim, but I imagine those will come in later today. So keep an eye out for those. If you're looking for resources, if you're filing a claim or if you're looking to review claims, if you want to catch up, the latest issue of the newsletter that came out, The Hedge, from last week, has a great breakdown. It goes through the liabilities for these claims, and it goes through some of the process, when to calculate loss. We have tabs in those spreadsheets for FTX International and FTX US when that opens later this week. So you can use that pricing information to calculate your loss. That way people know and have consistent pricing for providing proof of loss, and claims assessors can have the same pricing as well, so they can verify loss for the claims that they are assessing. We've got some guides on the blog as well that you can check out that has lots of information. And there's that spreadsheet that I referred to. And of course, I'll make announcements in Discord and open up chats in the forum section of Discord for individual claims if anybody has any discussions or wants to discuss things with the members who filed claims. I'll open up those discussions in Discord as well. In the DAO forums channel, if you just select claims, you can actually search for those individual discussions, and it kind of narrows down some of the other discussions that are happening there as well. So hopefully that's beneficial for everybody, but I will make sure everybody stays updated on this stuff. For some of the other claims that are opening up this week, we still have FTX US, BlockFi, and Gemini Earn claims that are going to be filed. I'll go over some information here. So as far as dates, BlockFi and FTX US are both going to start this Thursday on the 9th of February. BlockFi will start relatively early in the morning at 1:16 a.m. UTC, and FTX US will open for claims filing at 5 p.m. UTC. Gemini Earn is going to happen next Tuesday, February 14th at 1:32 p.m. UTC. So at that time, once these timeframes have passed, you can start filing claims if you have a claim for BlockFi. I know there's a couple accounts that have either been verified or are pending verification. With FTX US, I know there's at least one claim that should be coming in because there's one verified account for FTX US. Haven't seen anything for Gemini Earn yet, but people could still send in verification for that later this week. Just to give you an idea of liabilities, we have the largest liabilities for FTX at 9.55 million as of the pricing for last week. So far, we've seen a little over 2 million in claims filed for FTX International. For BlockFi, there is 611,000, a little more than that, in liabilities, and for Gemini Earn, 247,000 in liabilities, roughly. So all of that is in the latest issue of the newsletter, but just to give you an idea of the scale of these claim events, we may or may not see things for Gemini Earn, but we will see since we have a little lower liabilities there. For the claims filing process, it's very similar to what we've seen for FTX International. People can send their verification documentation to the claims@nexusmutual.io address. That just ensures that we can make sure that people that are filing claims are the same ones that own the custodial accounts to prevent any fraudulent claims from being filed. That is an off-chain process that is private. None of that information is shared publicly. And then once that's done and that's verified, you can gather your proof of loss documentation. For that, that's submitted publicly through the UI during the claims filing process. Make sure you censor any identifying information so that you can retain your privacy. And you can review the claims assessment section in the guide and in the docs, whether you're filing a claim or you plan to act as a claims assessor. On the day of filing, that's when you can calculate the actual loss. I'll be updating the pricing information in the tabs for each of these spreadsheets. There's a spreadsheet for BlockFi and one for Gemini Earn as well. Those are in the newsletter. Those are in both of the guides for BlockFi and Gemini Earn claims filing. And then when somebody is filing a claim, they'll either enter their actual loss or the total covered amounts in the requested claim field when they're actually filing their claim. So you're going to put in the lower amount of those two. If your loss is greater than your covered amount, we're only able to cover you up to your total covered amounts. If your actual loss is lower than your total covered amount, then that's what you're going to want to file a claim for, since we're actually covering loss and not the actual covered amount. So if you only lose in the case of one of these claims, $240,000 and you have coverage for $1 million, you would file a claim for $240,000. So we'll see claims filing happening later this week as well on Thursday, and then maybe some Gemini Earn claims next week. So keep your eye out, and of course I'll make announcements across our socials and open up discussions in Discord as well. And I will turn things over to Hugh to give his weekly update from the foundation. Hugh?
Hey everyone, thanks Lee for all of the claim stuff and everything. It all seems to be going quite smoothly so far. So yeah, get in and vote if you'd like to. We need more people to vote. It really will help. So yeah, lots of stuff going on from the foundation's perspective. You would have obviously seen the partial claims and everything coming along. I guess in terms of next steps and what we're focusing on right now, primarily testing, finalizing all the testing on the migration side of things to make sure we migrate from V1 to V2 in a good, safe way. So that's happening, and then also the UI, fine tuning the UI. So most of it's in. Sorry, excuse me. Most of it's in place right now, but we're just kind of going through the details on various bits and pieces. I think, as I have mentioned before on the UI, one of the things we are going to be kind of leaving out on the first run through is things like syndicates and I guess pool managers and what returns that they're generating and those types of things. So kind of like all of the kind of APY type calculations and stuff, they'll be left out, and we'll come back to them once there's some actual data and it makes a bit more sense to do that stuff. it also allows us to make sure we ship a bit earlier. So that's kind of the big focus right now. So I guess engineering is pretty much all deck doing all that stuff. So in particular, making sure that we migrate existing big stakers over in the right way. So yeah, it's all going well. Essentially, we want to kind of wait for a big wave of claims to finalize for FTX and others over the, I guess, coming week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that, and then kind of look at launching after that point. So that's kind of gives you kind of a rough idea of where we're targeting. So yeah, otherwise lots of stuff happening. I guess the other key points to probably raise from my side, the tokenomics stuff has been, I think, going quite well. I've really liked seeing all of the discussion happening on kind of Ray's the tokenomics working group's proposal there. So I think I had a bit of a catch up with Ray earlier today actually, and just working out what we think makes the most sense from next steps. And it's likely that we'll put together like a bit of a pulse check vote, probably via snapshot, to kind of work out which direction we want to go with. Basically, do we want to spend more time going to the next stage of technical specifications and development for the proposed strawman, or do we want to go with the alternative adjustment to the bonding curve that one of the members, David, put up? Or do we want to do something else, go back to the research phase, or do we want to stop completely? So something like that we'll put together on a pulse check over the coming weeks, I guess, and that'll give us a good. We'll be hopefully in a good position there to, once the engineers are kind of launch V2, to kind of pick that up as the kind of probably top priority from an engineering point of view. So that's the main stuff we're thinking about. We're also can Raptor vote in the pulse check? No, basically. Snapshot's not configured to take. Snapshot is only configured to take NXM. So where was I going with that? I guess some of the other more broader stuff we're looking at is launching like some other coverages and stuff post V2. So there's a lot of interesting discussions happening with different syndicates and stuff. So people obviously need to see it launched and everything, but there's some good momentum behind a bunch of things there. So I'm kind of expecting a really busy 6 months probably, but especially coming up to launch and the weeks and months following launch. I think it's going to be a big step up for the protocol, and really excited with what other syndicates can come up with, also some of the plans that we've got and things. So there's a lot going on there. You also probably seen some. You may have seen some announcements from Liquid Collective about getting ready for launch, and so I believe they're probably looking to buy their slashing coverage pretty soon. So I guess keep an eye out for that one as well. We're not exactly sure on when. Kind of they have to sync it up on their launch plans. So I guess lots of different things happening across a whole bunch of elements, but everything seems to be kind of coming together really well right now, and I'm actually really excited with how things are going. So. That's probably a good enough update from my side, but obviously happy to take questions.
OX Potato is asking, when did you say the pulse check will happen?
So it was just a discussion this morning, so we'll put it together and let everyone know, but I wouldn't expect it to happen immediately. It maybe in a week or something like that. But I think the main thing is that we kind of want to get hopefully we can achieve a broad or rough consensus on the model that we're targeting, and then over the coming weeks. And so then once V2 gets launched, the engineers are in a position to kind of devote their attention to the right model. I'd also probably say that, say we were to go with the straw man that Ray and others have put together, I don't think we should be looking to fine-tune parameters now. So it's more kind of directionally, do we want to proceed to the next stage, which is technical specifications and looking at build, and then assuming we get that agreed, then we can proceed with that, and as a community and as we go along, we can then look at parameter discussions, because I think there's as an example with Ray's proposal, there's a wide variety of parameters that you could set on a variety of things, and you could calibrate it to achieve different aims quite differently. So I think, yeah, there's definitely more discussions, and I wouldn't see that as a final decision by any means. It's more, do we want to allocate foundation and other DAO-based resources to take this to the next stage? That's more of a check.
There's a couple questions in there too. The first is, are we still on schedule to have V2 fully out by the end of the month?
I believe so. That's the plan.
The second one is, what do you think about buybacks in the short term while we figure out tokenomics?
I'm personally against buybacks in the short term until we figure out tokenomics. I think you lose some of your optionality. I see both sides of this, and so I'm not like absolutely deathly against it, because I can see both sides. But I do think once we're sorting out tokenomics and launching V2, and hopefully that's going to increase demand quite substantially. Obviously it might take a little bit of time to ramp up, but I think that strategic options is having strategic options is valuable, and therefore I think there's a material value in keeping that capital pool. But I take the point that other members don't think that way, and therefore I'm happy for the buyback discussions to continue on and go for a vote, etc. I think my one point on all of the buyback stuff is that whatever does get voted on needs to be very specific and not have any gaps in it that give basically you don't want to give any discretion or to people implementing it. You want to kind of lock it down as much as possible, so you know exactly what you're voting for. I think that's quite important.
And a follow-up question on buybacks. So DCF God is asking, if we want to make buybacks happen, we need to be able to move funds into the capital pool, and it doesn't allow for generalized transactions. If we want to make this happen, how do you suggest we approach it?
Well, I guess Jack does have Dopey has had a suggestion with regards to using some of the Maple investment, because that's already outside the capital pool, and you perhaps have more technical flexibility. Still requires an upgrade, but it's a lot easier to do. So that could be used as a one-off if people wanted to pursue that, and on the assumption that we do get a chunk of ETH back from Maple, which does look like it's going to happen, but the timing is a bit uncertain. So that's kind of one thing. The question more generally about, do we want to upgrade the capital pool smart contracts to allow generalized smart contract calls? Potentially, but we're not doing that as part of V2, and it has quite a few security implications. So I guess there is definitely a trade-off here. If you allow generalized smart contract calls to be hit from the capital pool to make those, then you open up the potential attack vectors reasonably, well, by a decent amount, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. It just requires making sure that you think through all the security implications. So having it kind of locked down at the moment does provide us some level of additional security. So yeah, with the downside that we can't act quickly and it takes a while to do stuff. So there's different settings there that the members may wish to make. So my preference is, if you are to if the buyback discussions proceed and you do end up approving it, I guess from my perspective, you should probably do that via the Maple funds, because that's much easier and doesn't distract devs near as much, which I think is our biggest constraint. And then I guess once you have tokenomics live, then I see the need for further buybacks is dramatically reduced, because the system would effectively sort all of those things out quite well, assuming it works as it's intended to. And so I think the potential need for generalized smart contract calls from the the pool is reduced, but then again, there's some other functionality that would open up. So I guess that's a potential development piece that the engineers can look at, which is generalized smart contract calls. I would put tokenomics work and also potentially layer 2 type work ahead of that from a priority point of view. But that's I guess my current perspective right now.
Okay, a couple more questions. I'll respond to DCF God's one. He had said, but we don't know when the Maple funds come back and we want something sustainable if we need to do future buybacks and whatnot. On that, I would say check out some of Dopey's comments on the forum. I would respond to him on the forum and ask him if he has any updates on a time frame for reimbursement on the Maple side. I don't think that Dopey would bring it up as a feasible solution if time frame was going to be a major issue. That's given tokenomics still needs the engineering team to look at specifications and actually go through the development process for the implementation, since right now it's just a model. There is still time for that, but I would follow up with Dopey on that point. From Tedward, can you quantify the workload for the contract upgrade to take assets out of the capital pool, just so we have a sense? That one is from Tedward in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I'd honestly say it's probably 2 months of work. Like this stuff isn't small. Like by the time the actual coding, you got to specify the stuff, but the actual coding is probably not that. But then once you add on all of the testing that goes around that, plus auditing and finding audit slots and everything, it does add up to quite a long time. And then of course you've got the governance process and launch process, etc. So these things do add up, and I'm not trying to just stop everything here. I think that's probably our most limited resource is engineering, and also we want to make sure that we do things from a safe point of view, from a security aspect. So that I guess that's where I'm coming from. I'd also agree with what Lee said on the Maple stuff. Look, I don't actually know when the funds would come back. I'd be surprised if we didn't get them back within, say, 3 weeks or something like that. Get the partial ones back within 3 weeks. So I guess that's the kind of time frame we're hopefully working with. It's hard to tell because there's a whole bunch of court processes and stuff involved, so who knows. But that's roughly what we're hopefully looking at.
Yeah, I would agree there. Like I said, on the forum, Dopey has, I think, a decent proposal with funds already being out of the capital pool and managed through the Enzyme Vault. If we can get funds from Maple reimbursed and returned to the Enzyme Vault, then the development work there's still some required, but the overhead isn't as high. And I believe there would be a chance that Enzyme could help us out on the engineering side. I believe they did that last time to help us make that initial deposit into Maple. So there is more flexibility by working through the Enzyme Vault. We already have capital there, and I think that's probably the most reasonable plan to execute a buyback in a reasonable time frame if that's what members support. Funds. So DCF God is asking, how did funds even get to Maple in the first place if the capital pool can't move money? So the last time there was a proposal for an investment allocation, the discussion was started in May. Once there was consensus from members that it seemed likely that that was a supported cause, then the engineering team did the resulting work to make that move of funds from the capital pool into the Enzyme Vault. With that, there were multiple parties that helped out. So one of them was the Enzyme team that helped us with the vault, setting the vault up and getting some of the specifications there. The engineering team, of course, had to make an upgrade to the capital pool contract. And then we had to work with Chainlink for proof of reserve so that we could actually figure out how much worth of assets we had in the Maple pool, because those are loaned out, so that we could still make sure that the capital model for the NXM token was working. So that's required a pretty significant amount of work. And like he was talking about, it was a matter of months to do the engineering work, actually conduct the audit to make sure that everything was safe, and then to have everything ready to put up to a governance vote. Once that was approved, it was then implemented, and then everything went into motion, and then that deposit was made. So while this discussion started on May 4th, the vote went live in early August, and then I believe the deposit was made on, I believe it was the 16th of August. So it does take considerable work, and you definitely want to make sure that any work that's done in the capital pool where all of the funds for the entire mutual are held is done safely and securely so that there isn't something that can be exploited by an attacker. I mean, you could do the same thing, but it would still require a pretty significant amount of work, DCF God. He's asking, can't we do the same thing but move the funds into a Gnosis multisig? With the Enzyme Vault, the functionality there is that you can have somebody added as a manager to the vault. So it doesn't work like a multi-sig per se, but it does give someone the functionality to execute the specifications that members would vote on for a buyback proposal. So having an Enzyme Vault is going to be faster than setting something up to send assets from the capital pool to a multi-sig. Sending assets out of the capital pool still requires a pretty significant amount of work.
I think just more generally, the way it works at the moment is this capital pool does not have generalized smart contract functionality. It can't call anything, it can't send funds. It can only do a limited number of things as specified in the contract. So every integration that we want to do has to be tailor built. And so the Enzyme one was tailored built. So if we want to send stuff to a Gnosis multisig, we could tailor build that too. So there's two main approaches here. One is you, as new things come up, you tailor build each one as you go. Or the other option is to upgrade the functionality of the smart contract of the pool to be able to make generalized smart contract calls. And then from then on, you would be able to specify through a governance vote how to do this. So there are two main approaches. The work to do to upgrade to have generalized smart contract call functionality would obviously be a much bigger upgrade than an individual integration. Obviously, it depends on the integration, but assuming it's simple. But then it gives you more flexibility in the future at the potential downside of the security implications of that generalized approach. So anyway, hopefully that gives you an idea of what we're working with here. I mean, you obviously all want it faster, etc. To me, that's kind of what it is right now. It's really hard working with smart contracts. You really don't want to stuff it up. You have to take the security precautions. So that's kind of the perspective we're working from.
Okay, and Tedward has a question. Is there any openness to expanding engineering resources? I think Hugh can probably talk on this with some of the hires for the engineering team.
Yeah, we have increased the engineering resources over the past year. I would say we're not looking to expand any further. Primarily because of funding. The funding of the foundations, I would describe it as okay, but not fantastic. And so there's if you wanted to. If the mutual members wanted to increase the foundation funding to expand the engineering team, that's definitely an option. Not necessarily proposing that right now. I think we've got a good team. A lot of the newer hires are kind of now fully up to speed and have been basically being very, very productive, but only, I guess, more recently over the more recent months. So it probably makes sense to just stabilize for a little while and make sure we ship V2 and then look at tokenomics and things. But that's kind of my current perspective.
And DCF God has a question. Is the stuff from Taylor Building for Enzyme reusable if we wanted to do Gnosis, or would it still be like a 4-month thing? I'll let Hugh tackle this, but just to clarify, Taylor Building is for the actual capital pool contract. The Enzyme Vault is something that does need some engineering work, but is much more flexible than the capital pool contract. But Hugh, I'll let you tackle this in a broader sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've kind of answered it pretty much, but I get where you're coming from. You're trying to push and you're trying to find every single angle to get the buyback done as fast as possible. I totally get it. I'm trying to give you the context with which we operate under. We have an integration with Enzyme. You can reuse some of the logic there to make it easier to upgrade, to do a tailored built integration for like a Gnosis safe. That's entirely possible. I'm not saying you're starting from scratch. It's not going to take 4 months. I guess my guesstimate would be a couple of months. So that's kind of where we're looking at. If you're looking to do the buyback, and looking to execute it as quick as possible, then I think the best route is to go via the Maple funds. That's my feeling at the moment. That way you can minimize engineering time. You can that's probably the quickest route. You can minimize engineering time. It also gives less distraction for the foundation engineering team to work on things like tokenomics, etc. So I guess that's, given all the resources and stuff, I think that's what I'd say right now. Also reiterate that I'm probably against a buyback, but that's obviously up to the members to decide.
Okay, well, lots of questions. All of those are good. But I'm going to move on to the next section. If there are further questions, happy to tackle those in the open forum section of the call as well. But thank you, Hugh, for the update. I think there's a lot going on, a lot happening, but a lot of it's very exciting, and a lot of big updates, a lot of claim payments coming. So things to look forward to and more things to announce a little later this week and this month. I'm going to review the last week in cover sales. In the last week, we sold a total of 16.3 million in cover. The fees that were earned from this cover was $42,466. Some of the largest cover buys that we saw came in for Curve and Nested. Nested, of course, regularly buys cover to cover their entire TVL. So nice to see that consistently happening. I think it's been for the last 8 months or so that Nested has been buying cover for their TVL. Some large cover buys coming in for Gearbox, GMX, Balancer, Aura. So still seeing a wide array of large cover buys coming in. Nice to see larger cover buys. Looking at the split between DAI denomination and ETH denomination, pretty much 99% across the board DAI denomination for cover sold and fees earned, and 1% for ETH denomination for cover sold and fees earned. Another solid week of cover buys. Looking at active coverage by cover type, you can see the total active cover across the board is roughly 182.3 million. Protocol cover, of course, is the most popular product with 147.18 million in active coverage. Custody cover is at 18.1 million. ETH staking cover at about 9.4 million, excess cover a little over 7 million, and yield token cover down to about 527,000. If you look for this week's issue of The Hedge, I'll have a breakdown of active cover by individual products in more detail in there as well. And an update on the community side, Nexus Mutual is now on Lens. We've got a profile on Lenster, which is built on top of Lens Protocol. We'll regularly be putting out announcements on Lens in addition to Twitter. So far we've seen a lot of engagement on Lens. There's a lot of crypto native folks on Lens, and so far a lot of love and support for our posts on Lens. So that's nice to see our reach extending even into our crypto native social media presence. I wanted to highlight some of the discussions that are on the forum. There are, I think, 5 major discussions going on. On the one side, we have investment discussions that were put up from members of the investment team. One posted by Ray is talking about the matching of assets and liabilities. Since our cover buys are predominantly DAI denominated, but the assets we hold in the capital pool are predominantly ETH. His post goes into that split, how that impacts us to a certain degree, and just getting a sense check from members as a request for comment if members want to look into potentially better matching assets and liabilities, or if the sentiment is to keep things as they are and manage things further. I would recommend giving that post a review, but is also related to the post that OSAT put up. His proposal is talking about investing a portion of the capital pool in Uniswap V3's ETH DAI pools. In there, he's talking about setting up a range in the ETH DAI pools. There's a couple different fee pools that he's talking about, so that over time, if the price of ETH goes up, we slowly diversify into DAI. And if things are kind of going sideways and we're in a crab market, that we would benefit from earning fees over time. That one has gotten some discussion, as well as Ray's proposal as well about matching the assets and liabilities. Both of these are essentially a request for comment at this point. Get involved and read that one. The Uniswap V2 proposal and Raise, as well as Dopey's. Dopey has a proposal talking about potentially investing a portion of the capital pool in treasuries and bonds in traditional markets. I would recommend reading through that one as well. All three of these are for members of the investment team. One of their efforts in the next couple quarters is to have more open discussions with members. So if there are discussions that they're having about potential strategies, they want to put those out to members to get a sense of what members would like to pursue, which things that they perhaps don't support or don't support at this time, and get a sense of how members want to progress with some of these potential strategies in addressing some of the issues that we currently have with regards to asset liability management. So those discussions are on the forum. You can check those out. I also have those linked in the thread for today's call. Some ongoing discussions that we've talked about on previous calls, as well as the tokenomics proposal, which Pew had talked about in his update from the foundation. But this was posted by Ray a few weeks ago. There's been a lot of discussion on the forum and on Discord about the tokenomics proposal. Highly recommend reading this if you haven't already and sharing some of your thoughts and comments. And then the WNXM buyback discussion, which was originally posted by Butter several weeks ago as well. This has been ongoing. There's been further updates in the last week in this discussion, and you can check that out on the forum. I think Dopey is kind of leading the charge on some of the specifications, but I think there's still some consensus needed on some of the parameters and the time frame. So please review that on the forum and share some of your thoughts and your comments as well. But nice to see a lot of active discussions happening on the forum. I also wanted to highlight the Ease team's post on the forum. They are going to be one of the first staking pool managers when Nexus Mutual V2 launches. So Ease, which is formerly Armor, has shared a risk framework that they're going to use for evaluating risk for their two staking pools. They have a pretty comprehensive breakdown. They talk about risk scoring, some of the risk scoring parameters you can see on the right here. So time-weighted total value locked, upgradability, Oracle's protocol type, the auditors who have performed audits on those protocols, and then some bonus points for other aspects as well. They talk about the two different staking pools they're planning to launch. At this point, they're requesting comments from members on their risk framework. If there's things you'd like to see improved on there, if you like it overall, or if you have ideas for how that they can improve their rubric or maybe improve some of their pricing logic, feel free to review and share your thoughts there. I really appreciate the Ease team for sharing this risk framework. I hope that a lot of teams that are managing staking pools in the future take this as a cue to have a well-documented and transparent risk framework that people can review when they're looking to stake and delegate their NXM. So yeah, really excited to see this on the forum. I hope others follow suit, and I hope everybody has a chance to review this and share some of their thoughts as well. And at this time in the call, it is the open forum. So I know that we covered quite a few things during Hugh's update, but if there's anything that we haven't covered yet, if you have any questions, happy to answer those now as well. Okay. I'm not seeing any questions in general, and I'm not seeing any in the community chat, so I will wrap things up for today. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on this week's call. Like I said, lots of updates are coming. If you haven't yet, please review some of those claims that are in the UI and stay active in those discussions. Check out the forum and all of the other things that we covered on today's call. I will see you on the call 2 weeks from now. Keep up to date for the latest updates on our Twitter, Lens, and Discord channels. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day and a wonderful rest of their week. We'll see you next time.